We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast, everyone. This is Abe, your host. It is 5:50 a.m., Monday, April 4th, 2022. It's actually my little brother's birthday today. Just got off work. It was a pretty chill night. Had some help. Somebody called out. Not really called out, but a no-call, no-show, and then a buddy from work came in on his day off, so I don't know, it was a chill night. We got everything done, so I can't complain. But yeah, that's about it as far as updates. I'm off today, so I might do a podcast later today too. But yeah, let's get on with the show. Now today we are covering mainly food. Why we're covering food is because we are in a great reset. In the World Economic Forum and all the evil ones who are in control of this world have a new menu. So I probably title this episode Menu for the New World Order just because that's what we're going to be covering today. All the weird shit that they want us to eat instead of actual food that we want to eat. This first article is basically explaining something that was brought to my attention from High Impact Flicks, which is a channel I listen to, so go check him out. If you do check him out and subscribe, tell him who sent you, and I don't know, maybe I'll do some work with him in the future or something, or he might give me a shout out or something like that, you know. But yeah, I knew that the World Economic Forum, that they wanted to get us away from like beef and stuff, and their excuse was basically climate change and how our farts cause methane from eating beef, and that they're wanting to cut down on the population of cows and stuff like that. So I thought, me thinking, you know, being an optimist, I thought, oh, well, I eat a lot of seafood. Surely they're not going to try to take that away from us. Of course they are. Of course they are. So let's get into this nasty ass shit that they want us to eat instead of seafood now. So lab cultured seafood is coming. But can it actually relieve pressure on global fisheries? Replacing wild-caught fish with lab-grown seafood is more complex than it may at first appear. We've heard plenty about cultured beef burgers and lab-grown chicken breast in the last few years, but what about cell-based seafood? Proponents of this emerging industry argue that diverting human appetites from wild-caught fish to seafood grown in a lab could be one way to ease pressure on global fisheries and replenish fish stocks. That's the premise on which this innovative technology is built. However, in the first in-depth assessment of this idea, researchers on a new study find that the links between lab-grown seafood and marine conservation may be more tenuous than they first appear. Specifically, getting consumers to make the switch to lab-grown fish and ensuring that it translates to reduce fishing of threatened species emerged as the biggest future challenges. Quote, the pathway for cell-based seafood to have a benefit to fisheries is long and narrow, says Benjamin Halpern, a marine biologist at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and lead author on the study. Yet there may still be some reasons to remain optimistic about the innovative new food tech, the researchers say. The production of cell-based seafood requires the extraction of muscle cells from fish, mollusk, or crustaceans, followed by their propagation in ideal conditions inside a bioreactor. Cells are typically grown on an edible scaffold that's designed to give them the structure and texture of wild-caught meat. The ideal result is that cultured seafood becomes indistinguishable from wild-caught fish. Yeah, I doubt that. To find out if switching to cultured seafood would be a better bet for the planet, the team of international cross-disciplinary researchers mapped out 9 key steps they believed this industry would have to achieve. At each stage, they delved into the potential and the challenges of cell-based seafood. The steps included developing the new product, getting it to market, making it cost competitive, which I doubt they're going to be able to do, and getting consumers to willingly substitute it for wild-caught fish. Nope. Sorry, man. I'm like hooked on salmon. I don't know what it is about salmon, but I've been eating the hell out of it lately. And I don't see me switching over. Consumption of cultured seafood would then have to be significant enough to lead to a decline in the fishing effort and the rebounding of threatened stocks. There are now a handful of companies that have succeeded in developing cell-based salmon, shrimp, yellowtail, and carp, with crab and lobster on the way. The most advanced are still at the taste testing stage and haven't yet entered the market, but the researchers' analysis revealed several uncertainties about the future of these cell-based foods. One of the biggest caveats is a notoriously fickle consumer market. 80% of new food products that hit the shelves are rejected by consumers. Ha! And end up failing. Foods that replace traditional meat face that added hurdle of having to demonstrate their likeness to the real thing. Consumers really have to be convinced of the new food's superiority to make the switch from the old product they've always consumed. That's a hard sell. The initial high cost of cell-based seafoods, which currently cost a lot more to produce than wild or farmed fish, is also likely to throw consumer preferences off course. The fishing industry is largely guided by consumer markets, so reducing fishing pressure on our oceans depends heavily on consumers' willingness to switch from the wild to lab-based seafood. By the way, you notice they never mention at all about the jobs, the fishermen's jobs. That's never a concern to them. Like, hey, this is going to put a lot of people out of work. But I don't know. That's just me. The researchers' analysis reveals the risk of relying on these unpredictable consumer base, and therefore the slim likelihood that the appetite for cell-based seafood would really catch on fast or significantly enough to divert pressure away from wild fisheries. But yeah, Klaus Schwab and stuff, World Economic Forum just put a video out. I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, something like that, about how they want us all to be eating lab-grown fish, basically. I think the hardest hurdle will be getting people to change their consumption behavior, not just to start eating this new product that they're unfamiliar with, but also to stop eating wild-caught fish, says Halpern. Such switches in food consumption are really rare. Yeah, you guys said 80% didn't want to eat this new shit. The researchers underscored many other caveats and uncertainties, but a few in particular stood out. Crucially, the target of current cell-based seafood innovations aren't species that are particularly threatened worldwide. For instance, tuna and salmon fisheries are relatively well managed. Meanwhile, forage species like anchovies face greater threats from overfishing, but aren't being explored in current cell-based developments because the financial returns wouldn't be high enough to justify the cost. This calls into question the real conservation impact that cell-based technologies could have if they're not able to replace the most threatened fish. Yeah, because it's not about any of that. It's about control over the people. You will own nothing and like it. You will eat bugs and like it. That's what they want, dude. Another point is that not all fisheries are struggling because of human consumption, but rather due to other significant factors like habitat destruction and climate change. The potential of cell-based seafood to make a difference in those scenarios is limited. The researchers also point out that even if a significant appetite developed for cell-based seafoods, there are also many fisheries around the world that are relatively insulated from the vagaries of consumer markets by measures like subsidies. That means shifts in human appetites won't necessarily steer substantial changes in crucial fisheries. And finally, there's the simple fact that there are thousands of fish species that humans currently consume, and that sheer diversity of choice is part of what makes seafood so appealing to us. Yet culturing seafood has very limited production capacity to replace them all. Just by virtue of the scale of the challenge, that limits the scope of its conservation benefits too. Overall, the researchers argue that celebrating cell-based seafood production as a fundamental solution to global overfishing is simplistic. It probably won't have industry-wide conservation benefits because its capacity just isn't that big. What's more, it will take a while to grow, pass regulations in multiple countries, and find widespread appeal in international markets. However, that doesn't mean it should be dismissed out of hand. There are unique characteristics of lab-grown seafood that, if marketed smartly, could make it appealing to some consumers, such as the reduced threat of mercury pollution and microplastics in fish flesh. The researchers also think that, crucially, it could be targeted to replace fish production from especially unsustainable forms of aquaculture, like land-based shrimp farms, that frequently result in the mangrove clearances and devastating soil and water pollution. But to set in motion global fisheries recovery, probably our best bet is to strengthen the tools we already have. Quote, I'm very skeptical that cell-based seafood has much chance of helping address overfishing, Halpern says. There are much better, very well-studied ways to reduce overfishing, most notably fisheries management and marine protected areas. For now, while we wait to see how new food technologies evolve, old school approaches may be where the greatest potential lies. But there you have it. Lab-grown fish, ladies and gents. Sounds appetizing. Not. So let's see what other weird stuff they want us eating. What's this? Scientists create first 3D printed Wagyu beef. The cultured cut matches the texture of marbling of the famous Japanese meat. Scientists in Japan successfully 3D printed a cut of Wagyu beef that looks just like the real thing. The team at Osaka University in Japan used three-dimensional bioprinting to replicate the cut-specific arrangement of muscle, fat, and blood vessels. They hope lab-grown meats could provide a more substantial and delicious alternative to traditionally raised beef. Quote, by improving this technology, it will be possible to not only reproduce complex meat structures, such as the beautiful sashi, or marbling, of Wagyu beef, but to also make subtle adjustments to fat and muscle components, unquote. Study co-author Michiya Matsusaki said in a statement, the study published last month in Nature Communications is the first to attempt bioprinting Wagyu beef, an expensive cut, prized for its tenderness, flavor, and delicate fat marbling. Like traditional 3D printing, bioprinting uses a computer-generated model that deposits layers of material to create a final three-dimensional project. But unlike standard methods which use materials like plastic or metal, 3D bioprinting stacks living cells to build complex structures like blood vessels and muscle tissue. This new beef isn't the first bioprinted cut of cow. An Israeli company unveiled their 3D printed ribeye steak earlier this year. But Wagyu posed a specific challenge according to insiders Cheryl Tay. The team needed to recreate the Wagyu's signature intramuscular fat content, known more commonly as fat marbling or sashi. To create the manufactured meat, scientists used two types of stem cells from specific breeds of Wagyu cows, reports Victor Tangerman for Futurism. By manipulating the stem cells, they could coax them into every type of cell needed to culture the meat. The individual fibers of muscle, fat, and blood vessels were bioprinted in layers that replicated a perfect Wagyu cut. Using the historical structure of Wagyu beef as a blueprint, we have developed a 3D printing method that can produce tailor-made complex structures like muscle fibers, fat, and blood vessels. Study co-author Dong-Hee Kang said in a statement. No one has tasted the beef, so the meat's flavor performance remains to be seen, reports Lauren Roos from Gizmodo, Australia. More studies are needed before anyone is green-lighted cooking or eating it, because earlier experiments with cultured meats have grown largely unstructured cuts. The team hopes this high-controlled printing method can improve lab-grown meat texture too. Theoretically, a customizable meat printing method means scientists could create tastier, more tender cuts of beef than exist today. The scientists hope their 3D printed meat will be an appealing option for those looking to reduce their reliance on livestock, which currently accounts for around 15% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. Yep, there you go, climate change. Though lab-made Wagyu beef could be a more sustainable alternative to traditionally raised meat, the high cost of production and limited regulatory oversight means it won't be available on supermarket shelves anytime soon. So there you have it. They are now able to 3D print meat. So we've talked about 3D printed meats, lab-grown fish. It gets even creepier. Researchers aim to develop edible plant-based mRNA Vs. The future of Vs, I have to use code word, I apologize, but I thought this was important for our vegetarian listeners, or someone who, like myself, enjoy a salad once in a while. The future of V's may look more like eating a salad than getting a usual shot in the arm. UC Riverside scientists are studying whether they can turn edible plants like lettuce into mRNA V factories, which, by the way, it's mRNA technology. It's not a V, but that's just me being a broken record. Messenger RNA, or mRNA, technology used in beer bug Vs works by teaching our cells to recognize and protect us against infectious diseases. One of the challenges with this new technology is that it must be kept cold to maintain stability during transport and storage. If this new project is successful, plant-based mRNA Vs, which can be eaten, could overcome this challenge with the ability to be stored at room temperature. Also, this is just me talking. It bypasses the whole religious exemption of not piercing the skin. Literally, it reminds me of the snake in the Garden of Eden and don't eat the forbidden fruit. They have literally thought this out like a chess game, like play, counterplay, play, counterplay, play, counterplay. Like, there is not one loophole that they didn't figure out. The project's goals, made possible by a $500,000 grant from the National Science Foundation, are threefold, showing that DNA containing the mRNA Vs can be successfully delivered into the part of plant cells where it can produce or replicate, demonstrating the plants can produce enough mRNA to rival a traditional shot, and finally determining the right dosage. Ideally, a single plant could produce enough mRNA to V a single person, said Juan Pablo Giraldo, an associate professor in UCR's Department of Botany and Plant Sciences, who is leading the research, done in collaboration with scientists from UC San Diego and Carnegie Mellon University. We are testing this approach with spinach and lettuce and have long-term goals of people growing it in their own gardens. Farmers could also eventually grow entire fields of it. And that's Juan Pablo Giraldo. Key to making this work are chloroplasts, small organs and plant cells that convert sunlight into energy that the plant can use. They're tiny solar-powered factories that produce sugar and other molecules which allow the plant to grow, Giraldo said. They're also an untapped source for making desirable molecules. In the past, Giraldo has shown that it is possible for chloroplasts to express genes that are naturally part of the plant. He and his colleagues did this by sending foreign genetic material into plant cells inside a protective casing. Determining the optimal properties of these casings for delivery into plant cells is a specialty of Giraldo's laboratory. But yeah, so it's in plants now too. We got a little bit time left, so I figured we'd wrap it up with this last. This is a news story that is kind of breaking news. It's recent. Joe Rogan's talking about quitting Spotify. Joe Rogan says, "I will quit Spotify if I have to walk on eggshells." The hugely popular and hugely controversial podcast host is threatening to quit the music streaming giant, leaving their $200 million deal on the table. During a recent episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, the former mixed martial arts commentator, got into a conversation with MMA fighter Josh Barnett about the cutthroat podcast industry ring. I will quit if it gets to that point I can't do it anymore. Where I have to do it in some sort of weird way where I have to walk on eggshells and my P's and Q's. Fuck that, Rogan said, referring to recent headlines spawned by his problematic banter, from using the N-word to spreading beer bug misinformation. Rogan 54 described his fear of being picked apart by the public for every little thing, which they do. There's more people pouring over it, but it's the same thing. I do it the same way, Rogan told the 44-year-old heavyweight. If I become something different because it grew bigger, I will quit, he concluded. Rogan first signed with the streaming music platform in 2020 for $100 million. With still about a year left to complete the contract, the deal has already since doubled in valuation. His troubling pandemic rhetoric culminated recently when a group of 270 doctors and healthcare experts called Rogan a menace to public health in an open letter to Spotify. Their signed warning couldn't move the app to act, so musician activists Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, David Crosby, Stephen Stills, I'm guessing Crosby and Stills, and Niles Lofgren did, announcing a boycott of the platform. By the way, I don't listen to any of those motherfuckers, so I don't know. That's just me. I think Neil Young had kind of one good song. It was Keep on Rockin' in the Free World or something like that, but even that was not really that good of a song. I don't know. I like punk rock. Sorry. Spotify has since slapped a content advisory on some of Rogan's episodes containing questionable discussion of Beerbug 19. During yet another public review, it also removed 113 episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience, namely those featuring interviews with far-right pundits such as Milo Yiannopoulos and Proud Boys associate Gavin McInnes. They also removed some Alex Jones episodes, some Eddie Bravo episodes. Yeah, 113 episodes they removed. That's pretty fucked up. That right there would have been enough for me to be like, hey now. But I don't know, $200 million was the contract, so I don't know. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I would be tempted. I mean, I'm just being straight up, keeping it 100 with y'all. For $200 million for me to remove 113 episodes, which I'm only on episode 200 something, but I ain't gonna lie, I'd be tempted. In the meantime, his critics have indeed had time to dredge up even more troubling comments from Rogan's past, including the use of the N-word, for which he promptly apologized upon re-reveal, calling it the most regretful and shameful thing I've ever had to talk about publicly. It looks effing horrible, even to me, Rogan said, acknowledging his reputation for shocking statements. I know that to most people there is no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast, and I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years. During Tuesday's episode, Rogan said his job requires sincerity. Without it, this show doesn't have any success. Barnett urged his friend and former colleague to keep having difficult conversations. It resonates with people because they are so starving for that. But I don't know, I thought it was interesting. I mean, he's talking about quitting if he has to walk on eggshells with Spotify, so Rogan, I wouldn't be here without Rogan. That's why I reported on it. I don't know. That's about it, though. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe, and you all have a good day.
We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings. Secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.